Hi, I'm Leanne Ely. I'm a nutritionist, a New York Times best-selling author, and some people even say I'm a life coach. I started the Daily Dish Show to share my story, my truth, and my journey to vibrancy, and to inspire others to do the same. Because it's all about grit, perseverance, and finding a way despite the odds. It's about embracing the whole woman, not just the parts that are easy to love, and feeding her heart, mind, body, and soul. But I found that this isn't just my story, it's your story too. It's go time. This is the Daily Dish. Okay, so let's talk about this really because honestly, boy, oh boy, like I said, favorite topic because there's literally something here for everyone, literally something that you can do. It's not like here comes the placation, here comes all the little word salad, here it is. It's not that. This is all actionable. So I want you to really listen up tight to this, especially if you've struggled with your self-talk, especially if you've been in the place of feeling like just a little less than, or you have angst about something or whatever, because the words that we speak to ourselves can be a whole heck of a lot harsher than anything we'd ever dare to say to anyone in public. But I want to talk about this idea of just, the ability to be able to flip the whole thing and just go into the place of positive self-talk, because that's not exactly what it's about. Don't you wish it was that easy? It's not. There are some easier components to this, but I want to kind of take you down a little bit of a path on this, if you don't mind. Positive self-talk is oftentimes emotion. Let's let me help set this up. Positive self-talk is to emotional pain what a pain pill would be to physical pain, because it helps to soothe your soul. It helps to take the words, these slicing and dicing and painful stabs that we do to ourselves, and starts to change them up. I learned this in a very, very big way because I was on such a negative path for so many years, and I never thought life was going to get any better. I never did. I thought it was always going to be this horrible. I had nothing really to look forward to, and I lived in just this deprecating, self-loathing, and depressing life. I had nothing to look forward to, And, when my kids came along, I kept thinking to myself, oh my gosh, this is what I'm teaching them, And I tried to put on a happy face and everything, but I'm sure, they kind of looked through it. But the thing is we know this from all the studies that have been done. And believe me, the research is abundantly clear. What we think about is what we become. And that's because where our focus goes is where our energy goes. And that's what our reticular activating system in our brain goes and collects evidence to support that. That's why it's so critical. We've just got to change it, or it will go down. It will be the worst thing you can ever imagine. It will. And I remember moments in my life where I had to change my mind about thinking the thoughts that I was thinking, because I would lay in bed in a cold sweat, and I'm not kidding, freaking out and having anxiety attacks. I have been prone pretty much all my adult life to anxiety attacks, like breathing into a bag kind of a thing, and saw a doctor about it and all of that, but, chose, instead of going on a whole bunch of these, bizarre medications, chose instead to a practice of meditation that just made such a big, big difference. But, because that puts you back to the center of yourself, and the center of yourself, your core, I believe, is lined up, and it's that strand that connects you to God, that keeps us central, that keeps us central to ourselves. And without all the garbage, without all the stuff that's going on out there, there is that one core, there's that one plumb line, and it's there. And that's what meditation does, is bring us to the place of that core. So the way we're wired in our brains is always on Well, think about it this way. Your brain is always on the lookout to prove the thoughts that you're thinking are right because we need to be right. And so our brains will say, well, see there, I've got this right here. See that? There it is. All this negative junk, I'm never going to this, I'm never going to do that. Your brain's going to make sure that this is the truth. This happens. I'm never going to lose weight. Okay, let's keep it up. I'm never going to have a house of my own. Okay, let's make sure that you stay poor or whatever it is. I'm never going to fill in the blank. Your brain is always working on your behalf to make sure that you are proven right. That's really interesting. That's just how our brains work. And I will say to you that even though somebody else's harsh words, remember I shared some harsh stuff yesterday with what some people had said to me and to others, and just this really harsh stuff, and it can stay with you. But your own words stay with you way longer and way more depth and so many roots in this kind of thing. And even that self-deprecating humor, it's not funny. When you mock yourself and just say all these horrible things about you. I had a weird relationship years ago with a girlfriend who we're still friends. Believe me, we're still friends, but we just don't hang out the way we used to hang out. And I would just absolutely slaughter myself for a good laugh, and I'd say all these really horrible things about me. This is, I was dealing with, I was 237 pounds at the time. And so I made all kinds, say, yeah, I'm going to buy a pair of jeans that say wide load on the back. And I'd say all kinds of awful things about myself. She would laugh, and so would I at myself, but it just perpetuated this self-loathing that I had. It wasn't funny. We thought it was funny, but it's not. And when we do this, when we take our own words and we use them against ourselves at our own expense, our world and our truth is manifested by this inner dialogue. I had a real problem with losing weight because I constantly said, I can't lose weight. I gain weight so easily. It's impossible. My dialogue was either in out loud or inside about this whole thing. I was obsessed with it. That's all I could think about. And I then made a decision. I don't want to think about this anymore. And it came off by itself. With good choices, of course. And also I had my focus not on my weight. I had my focus on my thyroid, because I felt so bad. I knew that if I didn't do something to fix my health, I was on my way to just laying on the couch all day. I was on my way to losing my business. I was on my way to losing my life, to absolute exhaustion, to all these things that were going on. And that is how I believe that we get to the place of where we start to fix some things that maybe we don't realize were just a part of what we do. So our self-talk is the inner dialogue, of course, that we have. And this is where we hash out all of our beliefs. This is where we hash out our thoughts, our ideas, and whatever randomness comes along. And this inner dialogue has been vastly studied. Vastly. So what I'm telling you is not just my thoughts or anything else. It's sports psychologists have studied this. It's been researched and researched and researched over and over again, because there's always a question: what makes one person not succeed in their life versus another person who's had this crazy success and comes from a lot worse of a place? I mean, we've always know these rags to riches stories of people living in their cars, and then suddenly, here they are living this multi-billion-dollar lifestyle. Tony Robbins tells stories about, cooking or washing his clothes in the bathtub and, all this. And you hear these stories over and over again. And then you hear other stories about people who came from good homes, everything was great. Then suddenly what happens? Things start to fall apart. They start to get into drugs. Next thing you know, they're living on the street, or they're not, locked up or have died with a needle stuck in their arm. What's the differentiator? These are what psychologists and social scientists study. They study this. And here's the thing that's the biggest influence. It's what you say to yourself. It's what you say to yourself. And I've spoken about these athletes that have gone head and shoulders above others. Why? And what they found is the skill set might be a little bit better. Like, for example, with Michael Phelps, they discovered he had longer arms than the average man, that he had a body built for swimming. That was his slight advantage physically. His other advantage was how hard he trained, but his unfair advantage, if you will, that made him the best swimmer above all back in the day when he was winning all those gold medals, was his mindset. It was what he said to himself. It was how he set himself up. It's how he viewed the world and himself in it. That's the thing that changed everything. It's Diana Nyad, who found a way. Find a way was her only message. 64 years old, swam, from Florida to Cuba or Cuba to Florida. I don't even remember which way it was. But you get it. It's what these people said. I mean, we also have Tiger Woods, Tiger Woods, he would literally see the ball landing into, he'd see it hitting the stick, the flag, and landing into the hole. And I've seen him make that shot before, not in person, but yeah, I've seen him make that shot. He visualized what it was that he wanted. He visualized and said that he was capable of making those kind of shots. And I don't know what his stats are or whatever, but I know that these are athletes that massively leverage their self-talk to rise above the rest. To rise above the rest. I mean, athletes, if you look at an athlete, they train, they have a schedule, they eat accordingly. They're focused on what it is that they want. They see in their mind's eye touching the edge of the pool or whatever it is that they do. But then there are those who take it to the next level. And it's they eat and breathe their self-talk, and it shows up in their performance. So I believe that we have to look at that because there's something here that makes it stand out, this function of their self-talk. And that is that their self-talk motivated them. It was emotionally supportive of the goal, of the outcome that they wanted to have. And it created a greater understanding of themselves, of what they were capable of and what they could do. Don't you think that applies to us? It's motivating when our self-talk is supportive of the things that we want. It's motivating and it emotionally supports us when we are flipping our words around because we don't want more of that same garbage, right? You know where I'm going with all of this. And it also creates a greater understanding and that we're a whole lot stronger than we thought we were, that we have this amazing capacity to change and to turn the ship around, and that we are so much more than we think we are. Stronger, more resilient, wiser, all of it. And you guys know, you've heard me saying, I had a big conversation. I shared this one, like I had a little pen pal for a while there. This woman is like, I love everything you're saying, but I just can't get motivated. And that is because when we look to the outside to motivate us, we don't get it that way. The motivation comes from within. I always say that motivation won't come knocking at your door. It won't. It just won't. You won't be suddenly knocked over by this whim of, oh, I'm motivated. It's from within that this motivation comes. It's making a decision that's all about you, what you want in your life, and that you're willing to go there. And when this all happens, things start to get dialed in. You're just like an athlete, wanting a better performance. And so you then start to perform better simply because this is what you want. It's not that, it's this. It's the vibrancy. And we're motivated by that. So we get what we are kind of aiming for. And the more we do it, the more we get. And that becomes kind of a really great cycle that we want to check into that. That's motivating. And that's what motivation is. But here's the deal, and this is one of the things that I talk about a lot, because we can have conflicting, confusing thoughts. On one hand, we say, I am this and I am that, and I'm, sitting there flexing in the mirror, whatever, going high-fiving ourselves and saying, we've got all of this. And then the next 5 minutes comes along, you can't do anything right. Look at you, you're blah, 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 or whatever it is. We get these conflicting thoughts coming in our brains. It's based on conditioning. Maybe some childhood stuff is coming up, or maybe it's from what we learned at school or whatever. I mean, we all have been conditioned. No, not one single soul on this planet has ever just not been conditioned. We all have. So maybe this is the one. This is my big one was with when I grew up, my dad would say, money doesn't grow on trees, and there was a big scarcity thing in our household and everything. When both of my parents were working, we had a house, we put in a pool. I thought, man, things are going pretty good. We've got it pretty good here. But my parents came from the place of, complete scarcity. And so when you hear that come up, and I say that to myself sometimes, money doesn't grow on trees, but that's your conditioning that comes up. But here's the thing. This is the kicker. What you do next is the thing that's going to drive the car. Okay? Because you could go, money doesn't grow on trees. I'll never have this. I'll never have that. And I don't want, instead, your decision about flipping the switch a little bit on the positivity that you want in your life is money doesn't grow on trees. But what if, or can you imagine, we could, maybe if, that's how we ended up here in this house. It was very much alive in my head. It was very much alive on my vision board. And it was very much alive in my dialogue, self-dialogue, and talking to you, talking to Mark, talking to everyone. And here we are, right? Here we are. So if you follow up with those kind of thoughts instead of the usual garbage, which just spins you further down the tube, you might see things start to change a little bit. You're basically fighting for yourself, and you're fighting for the things that you want instead of putting your focus on the things you don't want. It's that. This is how I decided to go to France. At the time, I just started dating Mark at the time, and we weren't exactly an item at that, in that place and time. And I wanted this certain trip. I knew where I wanted to go. I knew all of it. I wanted to go to Provence. I wanted the lavender fields. I wanted the wine and the cheese and the food and the everything. I wanted an experience. And so when I was looking at my American Express bill and saw that I had over 1 million travel points, this is because when we were buying our supplements, we used that American Express. That is when I made a decision. I'm going to France. I'm going to go to France by myself, and I'm going to have this experience. And I booked a trip that I will never forget as long as I live. I flew first class using all those points, right? Would I have done this otherwise? Would I have said money doesn't grow on tree? And I started all of that. What's wrong with flying business class or just regular? It's only a 8-hour trip or whatever the whole thing was. The point, though, was I wanted to show myself that anything is possible. And I wanted to live it. I wanted to feel it and experience all of it. And I did. But negative self-talk, though, is more than just relics from your past. I want you to understand that. And I also want you to understand, too, that we don't dismiss this negativity and just push it off and say, no, I just need positive, good vibes only. I mean, sure, we do. That's what we want. But, beside these negative thoughts, the underpinnings of these negative thoughts are also some very real emotions and some very real raw feeling. And, we don't dismiss those ever. We don't dismiss them. So what is that about? Here's what I do. I look at them separately apart from what it is, because if I put them all together and say, I've got to work this out first before I can go here, then I would have never gone to France. If I had to do, I wouldn't have started this company. I would have agreed with that pastor who told me I should be an agent with H&R Block, and I would have done the safe thing. We're always avoiding fear at any cost or change at any cost. That's what the amygdala does. It keeps you safe and in your container of sameness. And that sometimes says, take France off the table, take the business off the table, take all of this stuff off the table. But, you make a choice. At some point, there's a choice. What am I going to do with all of this? How am I going to do this? And here we've taken this, and I've shared with you about the tools that we use to help flip a negative mindset. We use our quote decks because there's amazing quotes like, "It's in the moments of decision that your destiny is shaped." Did you know that? Is that something that maybe you could meditate on for a little while rather than "I can't do anything right"? It's in the moment of decision that your destiny is shaped. Can you make good decisions? Oh my gosh, yes, you can. Can you make decisions that are impactful, that can change your life? Can you think thoughts to support that? Of course you can. Of course you can. Is it easy? No, it's not. Is it just snap your fingers and it's done? No. It's a matter of training. It's a matter of being Michael Phelps or Diana Nyad and finding a way. So I have some things for you that, if you understand that your intentions help to shape your destiny, they really do. They create new neural pathways in your brain. And those neural pathways are the things, we've traveled them all. If you've ever done anything on repetition, if you've ever tried to beat an addiction, you have a strong neural pathway that you need to ignore and create a new one. That's how our brains work. This is helpful because when we understand how our brains work, we don't have to be hapless victims, just like, oh my gosh, I don't even know what to do. So let's look at what our intentions can do. Let's look at how we can proactively construct them using these tools. Number one, speak out loud to yourself. I know, crazy town. But when you get into the weeds and you start saying things to yourself, I am powerful. I am capable. I can do this. I can do any of this that I want to. I did this with France. I remember saying, I could go to France alone. It was never, ever even a thought. But then suddenly I started to think about, what if I did this? What if I made this thing? And how, and then it was all this like, how are you going to be safe? And I had people saying, oh, I would never travel alone. I would never, especially internationally, and this, that, and the other thing. Okay, your opinion. Good for you. I'm doing this. I am doing this. And that's when I started saying these things. And I said my name out loud. Come to find out that this is something that your brain understands above all things. Your name, when your name is mentioned, if you're in a crowded room and you hear it across the room, you will hear it. You will hear your name because we pick that up first. That's the first thing we pick up is our names. It's our names, not even mom, which, we look around for mom, right? Even if we still have little kids, but our name. So when you say Jane, Helen, Lucy, you start saying your name and then you follow it up with what it is that you want. And if you really want to get powerful, I am it. But we'll get into that. You will hear it. Use it to your advantage. Hear your name. Say your name and say it out loud about something that you want. Number two, look yourself in the eye when you do it. This is where it gets weird. And I'm sorry, I'm not even going to apologize. But when you look at yourself eyeball to eyeball, there's an intimacy there that we oftentimes ignore. Do you really know yourself, though? Do you? Who are you? Look yourself in the eye and then address yourself by name and say, Leanne, you're courageous. I am capable of traveling alone. I am capable of staying safe. I am capable of having a good time all by myself, even if it meant sitting at a table all by myself and having dinner. I can do all of that. Of course I can. Never happened once, by the way. I was always invited over, and I met gobs of people that I'm still friends with on Facebook. I can, I am, and I do, and I will. And I did. But it started with empowering myself first to get rid of the negativity and to be positive about this particular experience. Yes, you can do hard things. Number 3 is I am statements. Those are declarative. They decree a manifesto of who you are, even if you're not it right now. Even if you say I'm courageous and you're sitting there trembling in your boots, your brain, remember, is going to look for evidence to support this statement. So keep it up. Even if you feel like you're just, a big schmuck for even bothering to say it. It's absolutely true. I am courageous. I can do hard things. I can find a different job. I can create the career I want. I can create the life I want to live. Yes, you can. If you believe it, you can. And you stay with it long enough. And number 4 is a vision board. My vision board has my house here on it. But your vision board, it helps your brain to see. Your brain loves pictures, by the way. Your brain creates pictures itself. But if you put it out there and you look at it and you're just getting all worked up about it and you're thinking, there it is. And you're just like, oh, it's the best thing. Yeah, I want that. I've shared with you before, I put voice memos on my phone about this house, that we'd go and look at houses we couldn't afford, but I wanted to go see them anyway. And I would beg Mark, come on, Mark, just work with me here, dude. Just work with me. I would say that. He thought I was crazy, but we did it, and it worked out, didn't it? It certainly worked out. But I'm telling you, when you see it daily, when it lights you up, and when you're looking at it and you start thinking about what if and how it could change and all of that, your thoughts have to support that. Your inner thoughts have to change to support that. You can't be all, everything stinks. My life is awful, yada, yada. No, I'm not going to do anything, this, that, and the other thing. And then look at your vibrancy board and go, woo! No, what you do is you look at your vibrancy board and you go, woo! And you start getting excited about that. And you start thinking about, how do I support that? What do I need to do next? How's this all going to work out? That's how that all works out. Number 5 is gratitude will break the back of negativity. You can't have negativity, resentment, bitterness, and anger. They don't coexist with gratitude. Starting with gratitude is just, it should be a regular practice for you, because it will bring you out of the darkness. Gratitude is so beautiful. Even if you hate where you're living, even if you're looking around, but what if you hung a picture? What if you put some flowers out on the table? What if you did some things that just said, I am so grateful for this little roof over my head. I am so grateful for everything that I have here. The gratitude will never let you down. And having a gratitude practice on the regular will support you and nurture your soul. Robin Sharma said, gratitude is the antidote for fear. But there are many faces of fear. We all know this. There's scarcity, criticism, failure, rejection. I've just brain dumped a whole list of stuff. Perfectionism, saying yes when you mean no, saying no when you mean yes, checking out by numbing out. That was my favorite. With food, booze, shopping, your phone, TV, or excessive work or busyness, or whatever addictive behavior you choose. And of course, then there's procrastination. That's capital P. And you know what procrastination is? It's the stealer of all vibrancy. You can write that one down. Procrastination will steal your life by not doing the things that you want and the things that you want to have in your life. By not doing them, it will steal your vibrancy, because then your mind is all on, oh, I should be, and then I'm not, and look at me. Oh my gosh, now I feel bad because I just 2 hours on my phone. I shouldn't have done that. That is procrastination's job, to steal and to rob you of all goodness that you want in your life. So think about that when you get into that. Now I want to add some positive extras to this. Is number 1, develop a meditation practice. I hate to say this, and maybe this sounds harsh, but it's true. If you don't have a meditation practice and you're all over the place and you're feeling down and glum and this, that, and the other thing, and procrastinating like crazy, and you've got all this stuff going on, you got to get connected to yourself and to God. This is how it's done with meditation. I think it's as powerful as prayer. I think it's more powerful than any other practice that you can have, along with gratitude, of course. But with a meditation practice and gratitude practice, it'll light the whole thing on fire. It has to change your focus and your inner talk simply because you're doing them. They won't exist together otherwise. Number 2 is focus on what you want and focus on appreciation for what you have. You're never going to get more. If you don't appreciate what you have, you're never going to get what you want. You hear me? You're never going to get what you want. I learned this really hard with, I remember when I had this house. This is a long time ago. I was married to my kid's dad, and we were living in this awful little apartment, and I hated it, and I wouldn't do anything to it. And I didn't even hang a picture, nothing. I hated it. But it wasn't until I started to recognize that I hated it even more by coming in and saying that, every day I walked in, I just hated it even more, until one day it just dawned on me, until I do something with it, I'm never going to have more than this. When we appreciate and we have gratitude for the things that we have, then we have an open path to having something more. Because if we don't have gratitude for what we have, that next thing's not going to come our way. Think about it. Makes sense. Number 3 is to question your beliefs if they're contrary to what you want, right? I love, oh my gosh, I can't even think of her name right now, but she's so great about this. She says, ask yourself this question: what's true about that thought? Because oftentimes our thoughts come from deep conditioning, deep trauma, years ago, stuff that came from way from the past. It's not even remotely true anymore, but we don't question it just because it happens. It's like a reflex. What if we stopped and just say, what's true about that? If we start asking ourselves that question, I have a feeling that we're going to start being a little bit more present with these thoughts and start giving them the boot when we need to. Number 4 is, and this is a biggie, is trust the one who made you. If we remember that we're fearfully and wonderfully made, if we believe that we're here on purpose and for purpose, doesn't that just make everything negative that we possibly have going on in our head super contrary to our purpose here on this earth, to our missions, to getting something done, to being here on purpose and for purpose? If we start to question these kind of things, I think we'll find ourselves in a place of wanting more and doing more. And lastly is find your people. You know why? If you're hanging around with people who don't have your back, if you're hanging around with people who are just as wah maybe as you are, you're going to get more of the same. So look for people who are saying, I want to live that next level up. Be like Carol, who says, I want to get on the wait list for Inner Circle. Now, what is Inner Circle about? It's making a decision that you're going to go that next step up. And that's what you do when you find your people. And you have all these women who are rallying together, who are saying, yes, that's the vibrancy that I want. Yes, that's what I'm aiming for. Yes, that's how I want to live my life. And when we're doing that, everything starts to shift and change. Not instantaneously. It takes a little work, but it's so worth your while. So I hope that was helpful. I know it went long because this is a big, deep subject. I could have gone all day on this because I emphatically know from personal experience that this is how this whole thing works. So I hope you get the show notes for this. That's at savingdinner.com if you don't have the show notes yet. Oh, that's so sweet, Susan. That is good self-talk. It is good self-talk because it really helps us to see and to know who we are, when we understand that. That's so important. We're not just yet another one of how many billion people on this earth? We're not. We're here on purpose and for purpose. That's all I have for you today. That's enough, right? Peace be with you. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining me today. You can find me on TikTok for daily tips to help support your most vibrant life. And remember, you are the author of your own story. Until next time.